So good, so good, so good.
New fall arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Vince, Kurt Geiger London, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club at Nordstrom Rack to unlock exclusive discounts on your favorite brands. Shop new arrivals first and more. Plus, get an extra 5% off every Rack purchase with a Nordstrom credit card. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
There's not a lot of people you can talk to about it. You might have friends that are going through it at the same time, but then they're going through a different experience. If you're in an online group, people drop off because they become mothers, you know?
Yep.
So it becomes so private, and it can become more and more isolating the more and more your situation shifts.
I'm Courtney Martin, and this is How To, the show where listeners bring us their toughest questions and we find the perfect person to give them guidance. Today's episode is about the road to parenthood, whether or not that journey ends with a child. We'll be talking about infertility, lack of control, and loss. Now, if this episode isn't for you, we completely get that. Please take care of yourself, and we'll see you next week. But for those of you sticking around, you're in for a nuanced, all too rare conversation about the things so many people find while pursuing parenthood. Sadness and frustration, sure, but also unexpected joy and peace. And with that, I'd like you to meet Lauren, who is in her 30s.
I think everyone kind of has an idea of what they think their life will turn out like. For my husband and I, it's been to grow our family. We've been trying for the past 7 years. We did IUIs, we've done IVF, we did donor embryos, we've seen numerous doctors, had procedures, tests, everything. But then in April, the last of our embryos were not successful, and we still don't have a child or a baby.
This period of time was marked by a lot of loss, and with it, a lot of grief.
I think the weird thing about infertility is it's not just one cycle that you get hopeful for and then have to grieve. It's over and over and over. It was almost like you started out being super hopeful and trying to get used to grieving. And by the end, I was so used to grieving, it was hard to find a hope.
After 8 embryo transfers, 4 initial positive pregnancy tests, and 3 miscarriages over those 7 years, Lauren says that grief came in waves. Some big, some small. Some crashed in and were totally overwhelming. Others just lapped in. And Lauren just had to wade it all out. Now, the thing is, she got really good at sitting with and managing that grief. She's been in support groups, seen wonderful therapists, read and consumed armfuls worth of resources. But despite that work, one thing was clear. Her life was heading in a very different direction than the one she'd planned. So, leads us to our question. If you're grieving the life you never had, how do you make space for the one you might create instead?
Obviously, this is not the road we plan to take. We are actually many roads off of where we wanted to be, but we don't necessarily need help figuring out what new road to take. Now we're starting to pursue adoption, but we just need help adjusting to that different road and not getting discouraged.
When life gives us detours or reroutes us entirely, some people turn to religion, some turn to self-help books. I like to turn to poetry. There is something about poetry that helps me cope with a lack of control like no other medium. Maybe it's the power of metaphor, maybe it's the flexibility of the language. Whatever it is, it works for me. which is why I am beyond grateful that my favorite poet agreed to talk about her infertility experience and what she found while traveling on this same road. You'll meet her right after the break.
If you're even paying a little bit of attention, you know we are living through this age of AI. But how do we actually use AI in our lives, in our companies, in our businesses? If you want to use AI, then you need to know about Zapier. Zapier is how you actually deliver on an AI strategy. I use Zapier all the time. For instance, I have a newsletter named The Science of Better on Substack. And I have all these emails that I want to go out automatically when someone emails me. And so I went to Zapier and I set up these really easy automations. And because of AI, they just work. With Zapier's AI orchestration platform, you can basically bring AI to any workflow, and you can connect all the top models to the tools that your team already has and uses. Join the millions of businesses transforming how they work with Zapier and AI. Get started for free by visiting zapier.com/how-to. That's zapier.com/how-to.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today? Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices, and that's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies, so you can save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states and situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
The Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University helps you go from, I know the way, to I've arrived with our top 10 ranked online MBA. Gain skills you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Get ready to go from make it happen to made it happen and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu/Jack Welch MBA to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
We're back, and I now want to introduce you to today's advice giver, Ada Limon. She's a poet who has written 8 books, including Startlement, which just came out. She's been a MacArthur Fellow, a Guggenheim Fellow, and one of Time Magazine's 2024 Women of the Year. And as if that wasn't impressive enough, she was named U.S. Poet Laureate in 2022. She's wrapping up her term in just a few days. Ada's poems are filled with beautiful imagery of the natural world that reveals so much about her inner world. If you're new to her work, here she is reading her poem, Maybe I'll Be Another Kind of Mother.
Maybe I'll be another kind of mother. Snow today, a layer outlining the maple like a halo, or rather a fungus, so many sharp edges in the month. I'm thinking I'll never sit down at the table at the restaurant. You know that one, by the window? Women gathered in paisley scarves with rusty iced tea, talking about their kids, their little time suckers, how their mouths want so much, a gesture of exhaustion, a roll of the eyes, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Their bags full of crayons and nut-free snacks, the light coming in the window, a small tear of joy melting like ice. No, I'll be elsewhere, having spent all day writing words, and then at the movies, where my man bought me a drink, because our bodies are our own, and what will it be? A blockbuster? A man somewhere saving the world alone, with only the thought of his family to get him through. The film will be forgettable. A thin star in a blurred sea of stars. I'll come home and rub my whole face against my dog's belly. She'll be warm and want to sleep some more. I'll stare at the tree, and the ice will have melted. So it's only the original tree again. Green branches giving way to other green branches. Everything coming back to life.
Ada's fifth book, The Carrying, includes poems where she works through feelings of powerlessness caused by infertility. She and her husband tried to conceive for about 7 years before they decided to stop trying. And while she's found real joy and meaning without kids, the journey was a winding one.
One of the things that I found frustrating when I was in a similar position was that every narrative that I looked for about infertility ended with a child. And I started to feel so suspicious of that. And then it also made me feel like more of a failure because it felt like my narrative was not ending in that way.
And just like Lauren, Ada found herself feeling more and more isolated and disconnected.
Everything you said was so real and so true. And I think there are so many people that go through this journey. Mm-hmm. What I really relate to in your experience is that figuring out how to map it for yourself, because it doesn't feel like we get a lot of resources that are out there. And it also doesn't feel as if the community of women who are often amazing and wonderful and step up and offer so much when you're going through it, their narratives tend to have ended in that way. And so if I can offer just an alternative, which is that there is another way, right? And the other ending can be this beautiful ending in which your body is meant just to be your body. And it's meant to be entirely yours. And it's meant for another kind of offering in the world, another kind of service, another way of being. And you may not be there yet, and it may take some time, but I know for me, I had a moment where I thought, what if it's just my body? What if it's not a vessel, a container, a portal, but just my body? And what if I was able to think of myself wholly and entirely as enough? And it's a difficult transition because you spend so much trying to think of yourself as a vessel, as an incubator. You think of everything you put in your body as, okay, how am I going to nourish and feed perhaps a life if I'm lucky enough? And when you move away from that, you have to almost, at least for myself, I had to really change the way that I thought of my body. And I thought, oh, how can I nourish just myself? And how can that be enough? That's the big pivot, is where, what if I was just enough? What if me and my body were meant to be in this journey in a different way? Slowly and surely, and of course, with time, it starts to change, it starts to shift. And you start to think of your body as strong. And it stops being a place where things didn't happen, and instead a place of possibilities.
I honestly don't want to be pregnant anymore because of everything we've been through. I would just be a wreck for 9 months. So in a way, it's been a relief to get my body back.
I'm so happy that you're already in that shift, because whatever comes, that is such a big part of it, is regaining the control and the freedom that your body can offer when it doesn't belong to anyone but you.
Definitely. I've been beaten down a lot, and I have bruises and scars from everything that we've been through. But I'm trying to accept those and appreciate them, and because I know that shows that I've been strong. even if I didn't want to be strong. And, everything was so unfortunate to experience that. But I do want to be able to be proud of those scars, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, and it's not just the scars too, I'm sure. At least I know for me, it was also your hormones are going through such whiplash.
Oh, yeah.
With the shots and with everything. And if you add your hormones to the extreme emotional fluctuation of 1 minute holding on to hope and then another minute trying to think, well, if it doesn't happen, I'll be okay. And how do you hold those two things in the mind at the same time? And it starts to make you feel somewhat insane. You have this moment where you think, I don't know if I can make room for these two realities. How does one make room for these two realities? How does one wish for something and then at the same time go, but I'll be okay if it doesn't happen, And I think that is also, when you come out the other end of that, there's a lot of strength that you did mentally and emotionally beyond the physical endeavors that is worthy of celebrating, is worthy of honoring.
I agree.
What did you use, poetry, I'm guessing, writing, to process that moment that Lauren's just experiencing now?
I think for me, just like every person who goes through this, it's a different situation. For me, it felt as if the universe had answered, and this time it had said no. And I was used to yeses. I have had a very lucky life. Yes, I've had a lot of struggles, but I married the man that I deeply love and cherish, and I felt as if we were going to be lucky in this way too. And I kept thinking, oh yes, the universe did give us an answer, and the universe said no. And it felt like a listening. It felt like, oh, this might mean something else for me. Now, I'll say that my pursuit shifted. I know with Lauren, you had said that you're going to pursue adoption. And for me, I felt like the whole journey closed. Initially, I came downstairs and said, I need to stop. I want to stop. And my husband said, okay. And he kind of looked at me because I'm sure my hormones had said this many different times. And I said, I'm done. I can't live in this liminal space anymore. I can't hold it. And he will tell you that night I went online and started looking at convertibles and he said, oh, I get it. You just went from trying to be a mother to what does child-free look like to me? And it was going to look like a convertible sports car, things that you could never get if you had a child, or wouldn't be advised to get. And of course I didn't do it, but I did think in that moment that I was searching for different ways of being. If we weren't going to be parents, what does that mean? Where could we live? How much could we travel? What does that open up? I'm someone who says, go through doors that open. And I kept thinking, what are the doors that have opened for me and continue to open and bring me joy? And for me, it was art. It was poetry. It was making things and putting things in the world in a different way. I just knew that a window or doorway had closed. I needed to see what else was going to open.
Do you relate to that, Lauren? Does it feel like a door is opening? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, I think so. I saw the door closing on the assisted reproductive technology route. We were trying to figure out what door would be open next. So we were peeking in those rooms and trying to figure out what made sense for us. Like Ada said, everyone's story is so different and so unique. It's so personal to each and every person going through this. I think this adoption door does feel like it's a good opening for us. Hopefully that one won't close and we'll be able to stay there, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. I'm also hearing in what both of you are saying so much about control. Like, Ada, can you speak to that? Do you feel like this has taught you something important about control? Or the lack thereof, obviously?
Yeah, I think that for me, it became the difference between the two words, surrender and acceptance. And I kept feeling like surrender felt like giving up, and acceptance felt like, okay, this is good. And I kept coming back to the word release. Like, what was it for me to release an old idea of my life, which was to be a mother? And what was it to be released into the world in a new way? If I was not going to be a mother, how could I amplify some of the other traits that may have gotten, in many ways, rerouted into parenthood? Who is that person right now, right here in the present? And, what can she offer? What does her life look like? And that's still a question I come back to. And I think having gone through that experience, as Lauren mentioned, it is something about strength. You are a different person and you are a stronger person. I don't take it for granted. I think I was supposed to be on that journey, and I think it's made me who I am. I think it's made me a better artist. I think it's made me much more empathetic to people who are struggling in all sorts of things. Your mind and your heart opens up to those different realities, and you hold a lot. I'm not sure about the word wisdom, but there is something that changes you. I think some people will always say, you're profoundly changed by being a mother. But I think you're profoundly changed by not being a mother too. That's a gift. It's just a different kind of gift.
I completely agree. Through this, I've realized that grief isn't just grieving a person, that there's so many different forms of grief. And so now I have so much more empathy for anyone going through tough times, that, okay, you are grieving things, that even if it's not a person or a death of a person, I definitely feel like I'm a completely different person than I was 7 years ago. But at the same time, like you were saying, it's also trying to remember who I was at the beginning of all of this, accepting and releasing and finding yourself again. I think that's where I'm still struggling a little bit in remembering and trying to find that who Lauren was 7 years ago.
Yeah, I totally understand that feeling. And I think for me, the person I was before, like the original self, it's not so much the person that I was before, but it's the person who's always been there. The person who has been with me since I was 5, and the person that has been with me when I was 15, and the person that, it's like the original self. It's not before or after, but the always. And like that was something that really struck me, was, oh, she's always been with me. She's always been here.
I like that.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk isolation, partnership, and rebellion.
Tuesday on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon. Series premiere Tuesday on NBC.
Abercrombie denim is everything right now. Denim should feel like this. Confident, easy, Like your butt has never looked better. If you didn't know, Abercrombie's Curve Love denim went viral in 2019 for eliminating waist gap, and it's still a game changer. Between that and their classic fits with a straighter line from waist to hip, the perfect denim does exist. Shop Abercrombie denim in the app, online, and in store.
We're back with poet Ada Limon and our listener, Lauren. Whenever you're on a difficult road, it often helps to have a loving companion. And luckily, both Ada and Lauren have that.
I definitely have a very supportive husband. He was like the rock, and he just kept saying, it's up to you. And he would support me, whatever decision I made. I think he's now also very relieved with my decision that I don't want to be pregnant anymore. And he is definitely ready to move down this adoption path. I don't know if he would be able to get to a point, if the adoptions don't work out, to not be a father. And that sometimes worries me because I don't know where we'll end up. We could still end up there. And I think both of us are scared of that possibility.
You know, on one of my first dates with my husband, he said, you know, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. So I think it was easier for him to kind of release the idea of being a father. I think the thing that he's always been absolutely supportive, similar to your partner, always saying, you know, it's your body. As long as you want to do this, we'll do this, etc. But I think that he was very relieved. I'll say this, you know, because now as I age and we age together, it's farther and farther away from our realities. And yet there are times where I'll still look at him and think, oh, he would have made an excellent father. And there's a part of me that is sad to know that I'll never know him as a father, but I get to know him as an uncle, and he is a really wonderful uncle. And I'm the auntie, and we get to spoil the little ones and be the fun ones and all of those things. But there are times where, you know, I think, oh, what could we have made, you know? But I also think that that's okay. I think that that is a beautiful thing that we share together. You know, we've gone through something. It's not unlike parenthood. It's not the opposite of it. It's that we became different people. We went through a process. Just our process was not raising a child. It was, you know, building a dream and letting go of that dream. And that's a huge, huge thing to go through together. I also think, I know that you'll relate to this, Lauren, it's such a private journey. And there's not a lot of people you can talk to about it. You might have friends that are going through it at the same time, but then they're going through a different experience. Or if you're in an online group, people drop off because they become mothers, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
So it becomes so private, and it can become more and more isolating the more and more your situation shifts away from other people's situations. And so your partner becomes so key in many ways because you get to share that with this one person that you can't always share it on a larger level or even in a community, because that community keeps shifting. So I think I'm really glad you have someone in your life that sounds so supportive and is ready to continue on the journey with you.
I called myself a long hauler because, there would be groups that I'd be part of, and people would join and then they'd leave because they got pregnant and I was still there. And that was really hard to do.
I very much relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I really like what you were saying too, that there are days that you still wonder and still think that he would make a great father. And I think that's part of what scares me, is always having that part of the grief linger.
Yeah. I'll say this. It doesn't feel like grief for me anymore. I love my life. I mean, I love it. I wouldn't want it any other way. And we have become closer and happier and more devoted to each other. And sometimes I don't know if that would have happened if we had become parents. If there's ever that sort of other life that creeps in, I can look at it and think, oh, he would have been excellent as a father and he would have been this. But it brings me joy to think of it. It doesn't bring me grief anymore. I just want to share that because I had a friend once tell me that as you age, it sort of dissipates a little bit. And I remember thinking, I didn't trust her. And I'll be 50 next year. And it's different for me now. You know, I don't think about it as often. My work returns me to it because I wrote about it. And I still have friends with young children and I get to spoil them and I get to be the auntie with a freezer full of popsicles and, you know. But I didn't know this type of happiness was going to be there for me. But it's there. And I feel not just like I'm living the life I'm supposed to live, but I'm living a life I dreamed of. I wouldn't have believed my past self if I had said it right after we had finished our journey and our act of trying.
You said that you're living a life you dreamed of, but I imagine that dream changed. How have you still kept maybe your original dream, but obviously that it's not what you initially had?
Yeah, I really appreciate that because even when I said it, I said, is that true? I think that what it is that I've always wanted a life that was full of family and joy. And I wanted the table that everyone gathered around. I wanted the place where people came for holidays. I wanted to be the hearth. And I am. And I'm more so that for my friends and for my parents. And I think that in many ways, not becoming a mother has allowed me to devote myself to being a daughter as my parents age. My mother and I are extremely close. And so I still have the house where people come over and people gather and it's still the hearth. I wanted to be that person that invited life and love in. And I think that I'm still that person.
I like that.
The only thing is I get to have a good night's sleep.
And a lot more money and marital bliss and sex. And I can give the dark side if you guys need the dark side over here.
A lot of great sex.
I can definitely give you the dark side. Lauren, it just makes me think that's such a beautiful way about Ada realizing it was about being the hearth. Like when you think about motherhood, is there some more elemental texture to it like that for you that is about what you're actually dreaming about?
Yeah, I think that our ultimate goal was to love a child. We had room to love another child. And so realizing that made the going down this path not so scary. But I like, Ada, you still had that dream. It just came about differently or looked a little different, but that original dream was still there.
Yeah. Because I think it's a place, at least for me, and like we both have acknowledged, it's just so different for every individual. But it really was, and is, you have so much love to give. And it's never wasted. It always finds a home.
Yeah. I saw that, Ada, you have a children's book. So how was that to write? I don't know if you went into it thinking it would be for your child and then it wasn't or anything like that. What I'm getting at is, do you still have triggers, I guess? I know that's a big word.
No, I really appreciate that. And actually, one of the things that I felt was a little unspoken even between us was that I know that I had to let go of a lot of rage and a lot of anger and sometimes some envy. And there were times when I was around mothers where I felt very isolated. And even, the children's books, I have 2, they were based on poems, so they weren't written in particular for children originally, but then they were turned by the illustrator and the publisher into these beautiful children's books. And I love them. And I think that there was a moment, probably in the years right after we had stopped trying, where I felt like I didn't really want to be around a lot of young mothers, and it primarily because, or new mothers, I should say new mothers,
right.
was that because they were in a different world. There was a part of me that felt a little rebellious. I really wanted to make sure my world was awesome, So there was a part of me that was like, oh, you get to have that, but I get to have this. And I don't really have those anymore, but I didn't love going out with people with kids for a little while. I needed to separate myself.
Do you have any tips on how to get through that?
Yeah. For me, it was embracing that I got to be this super cool auntie, and I got to spoil them and love them and take them around the restaurant while their mom got a break. And I got to be so fun. And I also got to be a good friend by helping them out and giving them a chance to eat their salad for once. And then I also got to hand the baby back. And then I got to go home and live my free life. So it was really about that. I think a lot of it was, oh, I get to show up in this way that can be really helpful, that is part of the community, that's key. But then I also got to have this little selfish core of me that was being able to do whatever I wanted with whatever minute I wanted to do it with.
I love that. Aunties are truly the best, absolute gift on so many levels. So, Ada, would you be willing to share a poem with us?
I'd be so happy to. It was very interesting living in Kentucky, and Lauren, you probably have gone through this. When you aren't able to conceive, everyone around you suddenly seems pregnant.
Yes.
And in Kentucky, all the mares would be pregnant. Like all the horses were pregnant. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yes.
And so I have this poem, which is called Carrying, and I'll read this for you. Carrying. The sky's white with November's teeth, and the air is ash and wood smoke, a flush of color from the dying tree, a cargo train speeding through, and there, that's me, standing in the wintering grass, watching the dog suffer the cold leaves. I'm not large from this distance, just a fence post, a hedge of holly. Wider still, beyond the rumble of overpass, mares look for what's left of green in the pasture. A few weanlings kick out, and theirs is the same sky, white like a calm flag of surrender pulled taut. A few farms over, there's our mare, her belly barrel round with foal, or idea of foal. It's Kentucky, late fall, and any mare worth her salt is carrying the next potential stakes winners. Ours, her coat thicker with the season's muck, leans against the black fence, and this image is heavy within me. How my own body, empty, clean of secrets, knows how to carry her, knows we were all meant for something.
Wow.
So special.
It's beautiful.
Lauren, I really actually want to end with you giving advice, because there are probably a lot of our listeners who will be just starting on this journey. And like we said, you've been through 7 years of a real thing. What would you say to our listeners who are just beginning?
Ooh, that's tough. I think one thing that I realized toward the end is that hope can show up in many different ways. it doesn't have to be all rainbows and butterflies, that you could be hopeful with some anxiety or kind of dreading having hope, especially if you're going through this longer and longer. But as long as you're still doing it, you still have some hope. It's still there. So that would be one thing. Another thing, I think every person's story is so unique and personal. And whether you do one round of IVF and you're like, nope, that's it, I'm done. Or if you're in it for 10 years and you keep going, you need to make the best decisions for yourself in this process.
Which really gets back to Ada's point about self-love, right? And about the body as your own body. And I think that's such a beautiful note to end on. And I just am so grateful to you both, Lauren, for reaching out to us, because as you guys spoke about, this is such a private journey for so many people. And I know this show is going to help a lot of folks who listen to it. So we're really grateful for your vulnerability and courage. And Ada, so grateful for your insights and your beautiful words. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wish I had had this podcast when I was starting my journey back then.
Again, that was U.S. Poet Laureate Ada Limon. Her new book just came out. It's a collection of poetry called Startlement. Are you on a difficult road and would like advice from a fellow traveler? Send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001, and we might have you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, please give us a rating and a review and tell a friend. That helps us help more people. How To is produced by Rosie Belson with Kevin Bendis and Sophie Summergrad. Joel Meyer is our supervising producer. Merritt Jacob is senior technical director and composed our theme music. Charles Duhigg created the show. Carvel Wallace is my co-host. And I'm Courtney Martin. Thanks for listening.
Listen. That's the sound of the fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. The sound of captivating electric performance, dynamic drive, and the quiet confidence of ultra-smooth handling. The elevated interior reminds you this is more than an EV. This is electric performance redefined. The fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron.